On December 12th, the 2024 Video Game Awards aired over the internet via several different live streams. I used to care a tremendous amount about the VGAs as a celebration of gaming, a medium that I've dedicated a lot of time to enjoying, learning about, and being around. But over time, I've lost interest in the show, as the awards themselves seldom mattered, the advertisements weren't that impressive despite their increasing prevalence, and it was just easy to make fun of the whole thing because it seemed like a cynical production that didn't deserve any of my optimism or energy. But still, I did hear some rumblings about some big announcements for this year's show, and I've been trying to build my own live stream channel on Twitch, ChrisTheNerd92, by the way, and you should follow me there. I stream at least 3 times a week, playing video games, funny enough. So I watched and streamed this year's show in anticipation of making some jokes at the Dorito Pope's expense. I know that he hates this image, and it will forever stain his legacy more than the actual stains on his legacy ever will. I also figured whatever announcements were made, they would, as the great Shania Twain once said, not impress me much. Now, don't get me wrong, I think they're alright, but I often joke, or say mockingly at the end of every show like this, every Nintendo Direct, or Sony State of Play, or whatever the fuck it is Microsoft does these days, that the future is now. Even if the future is just remakes and sequels. But the end of this show had me feeling a little different. The future is still, of course, now, but I wasn't as caked in cynicism as I've been in years past, and I wanted to figure out why that was. Was it because of the host? Well, I've never really cared for Jeff Keighley. I think the nicest things you can say about him are that he is robotic, uncharismatic, and despite decades of being a television presenter, still seems like he is consistently wildly over his skis. And the worst thing that you can say about him is that he's a moralish shill whose actions and behavior often betrays the words that he says, if he ever says anything at all. Something was different about this show. More of an effort seemed to be made for him to be genuine. Perhaps Jeff Keighley's turning a corner. Maybe the constant hatred he has received for turning a blind eye to the systemic issues of the industry that he covers has finally gotten through to him. For at least one night and one show, if only in brief bursts, Jeff Keighley seemed genuine. I think we all know this, but negativity sells in online spaces, but there is something wonderful about seeing someone speak passionately about things they care about. It's meaningful to watch someone moved to near tears, putting themselves in an incredibly vulnerable position for a massive audience, and that happened at this show. When Jeff Keighley announced Fumito Ueda's new project, he was beaming with pride, his voice cracked with excitement, and he was practically in tears at the trust that was put in him to deliver this announcement. And that spoke to me. Then there was the presentation of the Game Changer Award. For years, the VGAs have been criticized for celebrating an industry and companies that succeed at the expense of the humans who make their projects possible. That amazing game that you just played was not courtesy of the monolithic corporation whose logo happens to be on the box, or the asshole in a suit who profited off of it. It was made by a team of people, passionate people that were likely laid off right before a holiday because that would look better on a quarterly spreadsheet. Chances are also high that the asshole in the suit who is responsible for those layoffs is sitting in that theater right now, eager to accept an award on behalf of the people he is eagerly planning to fire. This is a known quantity, and over the last few years, the number of layoffs in the industry have been staggering. Game budgets balloon, and the insatiable greed of these horrendous corporations and the people who run them are sapping life and passion from the industry, but the Game Awards soldiered on, celebrating that behavior, with no mention whatsoever to the human cost for an industry that shouldn't, under any circumstances, have a human cost. A small, and I do mean small, amount of lip service was given to the problem at this year's award show. Jeff Keighley presented the Game Changer Award and actually mentioned the layoffs and how the amazing games they're there to celebrate cannot happen without the people who make them. It wasn't particularly brave or profound, but it is something. And after years of saying nothing, anything is something. Is it enough? Absolutely not. The platform that the VGAs have is massive, and Jeff Keighley certainly could have and should have said more, or at the very least, called out the root of the problem, if he would have been fine with upsetting some of the people that were most assuredly on the board of directors sitting in the audience. At least the award itself went to a seemingly kind individual. The thing that he does is small and it shouldn't even be necessary, but at least he seemed like a decent, wholesome guy. Probably. But it's more than just that. There seemed to be a show of solidarity among the developers who won awards and presented awards. Joseph Fares took over the show for a moment to show his kids in the crowd. Buddy loves his wife, he loves his kids, and he loves the game that he's working on because he knows it's the shit, and he is excited to share that with everyone. Then there was Sven Vinke from Larian Studios, while presenting the Game of the Year, talked about making games that aren't trying to hit sales numbers because that isn't what making entertainment should ever be about. And all of this happened amidst a worker strike. That kind of messaging matters now more than ever. And sure, it's easy to say that those guys just went mercenary and it would never be approved by the Game Awards as a whole, but they still happened. The comments still aired. These people weren't told to fuck off in the middle of their speeches or told to wrap it up, probably because the show was having teleprompter issues all night. But their comments being presented uninterrupted have given them an air of approval from the show they were presented on, even if not necessarily on purpose. Now, does this mean that you should be excited for the future of the game industry? Well, I might have to balk on that. There were certainly some interesting games announced, and you know there's big ones coming. Astrobot winning Game of the Year was very nice. The joyful game about nostalgia cleaning up at the show was a lovely thing to see, but does that mean that things are getting better? No. Be weary. Be vigilant. The game industry is still run by greedy ghouls. The AAA portion of it is a nightmare that should always be held at arm's length. However, there are a lot of fascinating projects that are being worked on by passionate studios and passionate people. Look at Balatro. That game won several awards, and it was made by a guy who didn't even show up for the show. What a fucking power move. But what about the VGAs? Have they gotten any better? A little. Like I said, there were some interesting things that they showed, and there were some fun things they did, but this is still mostly a bunch of advertisements, interrupted by the occasional award and some quite good orchestral music, as mentioned by the incredible Statler and Waldorf, who called Jeff Keighley a moron to his face. And he looked quite uncomfortable being roasted by Muppets, which is simultaneously sad and incredibly funny. It doesn't even matter that the Muppets had no real reason to be there. I'm glad they were. And they always should be. And that takes us back to my cynicism. Perhaps that's been worn down a bit as a result of me making my own game. I've been working on a visual novel over the last several months, and it's going to be releasing within a matter of weeks. So perhaps me finally putting myself out there, making myself vulnerable to cynics like me, has eroded some of the shell that I've tried to hide behind in the past. I don't think it's going to stop me from being critical in the future, but it certainly will force me to properly articulate how I feel about everything I come across, and that includes the Game Awards. But if there is somebody out there who still avoids them because they still view it as being a cynical product, I totally get that. I'm not going to argue with that. There is still something inherently ghoulish about celebrating an industry that is shrouded in immense uncertainty that's been brought on by its own insatiable greed. But at the same time, I do think it's fascinating to see how this event has changed since its inception is the words I was really looking for there. Oh, man. I could have been presenting at the VGAs with a stumble like that. The first Spike TV VGA Awards was in 2003. It's been 21 years. At the first VGAs, there were performances by POD, Andrew WK, and DMX. Madden 04 won Game of the Year. It was hosted by David Spade. We've come a long way. It's now, more than ever, definitely a celebration of video games, and not whatever it was that Spike TV celebrated. Jizz, I'd imagine. There is still room for the current iteration of the awards to improve. I think the Game Changer Award is a nice start. I'd love to see that expanded on, and I'd like to see more love to the smaller projects as well. There are a lot of upcoming games or indie games that are already out that deserve wider attention. Mouthwashing, for example, Berserk Boy, countless others that can't afford the slot deserve to be mentioned. And for fuck's sake, if you're going to claim to be an award show, then maybe you can take some time for the award portion of the show, instead of just speed running them in 30 seconds so you can get to more Fortnite ads. And if I can conclude with any one sentiment, it would be this. Jeff Keighley, if you are somehow watching, Maybe one day you will be lucky enough that Hideo Kojima will be so impressed by your attempts at growth, he'll finally consider you enough of a friend that he will scan you into Death Stranding 2 to play the hit character Popus Doritus, the maestro of all religion. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I might have. And if you did, be sure to fulfill the whims of the algorithm with likes, comments, and a subscription to the channel. Follow me on social media. I post on Blue Sky, and now I'm on Twitch. Stay tuned for future updates on my video game. I'm super excited to talk about it now that it's almost done. There's perks on Patreon for those that wish to aid in the never-ending struggle. Support me if you can. Love me if you must. Have a great rest of your day.